My wife stood up in front of everyone at that party and declared that marriage was a scam and that she was officially single again. What she didn't count on was how I would respond. It began on a Wednesday evening when she came home buzzing with an excitement that immediately set my nerves on edge. There was that same glint in her eyes she gets when she's plotting something she thinks is brilliant. "We need to go somewhere special this Saturday," she announced, practically vibrating with anticipation. "I've organized something really important for us." I was at the kitchen counter, trudging through work emails on my laptop. "What kind of something?" I asked. "It's a surprise. Trust me. Be at the Riverside Event Center at 7 sharp." Her tone made my stomach clench. It sounded practiced, like she'd rehearsed every line. Still, I nodded. "Fine." Saturday arrived and she spent the whole afternoon preparing. Hair, makeup, the full production. She chose a red dress she only saved for big occasions and kept checking the mirror with a pleased little smile. "You look nice," I told her as we climbed into the car. "Thanks. You scrub up well too," she said. The drive to the event felt off. She kept fiddling with her phone, sending texts, then tucking it away, then checking again, and every so often she would look at me as if cataloging my face. "So what exactly are we walking into?" I asked as we pulled into the lot. "You'll see. Follow my lead." The Riverside Event Center was the sort of rented hall with beige carpet and humming fluorescent lights. Voices and music spilled from a side room as we pushed through the doors. She walked me toward the sound with her hand on my arm in a way that felt more like steering than affection. When we stepped into the main room, I stopped dead. There had to be 30 people packed in. Friends, some of her co-workers, even her sister and brother-in-law. They all turned and that expectant hush dropped over the crowd. "Surprise!" someone called, but it sounded empty, like they didn't know what they were celebrating. My wife moved away from me and took center stage, brandishing a microphone she must have borrowed from somewhere. Suddenly, I realized this wasn't a surprise for me at all. It was her performance, and I was the captive audience. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she said, her voice filling the room through the speakers. "I know some of you are wondering why I asked you here, so I'll get to the point." The room grew quieter. Eyes flicked back and forth between her and me. A cold weight dropped into my chest. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about marriage, relationships, what we're really doing with our lives," she continued, pausing for dramatic effect like she was on a stage giving a TED Talk. "And I've come to a conclusion. Here it comes," I thought. "I think marriage is a scam. It's an outdated institution that traps people. So tonight I want to tell you all I'm officially single again." The room exploded. Applause and cheers like she'd announced a campaign. Her sister hooped from the back. A guy from her office hollered, "You go, girl!" I watched this circus unfold and felt something inside me shift into a crystal-clear realization. She had orchestrated this to humiliate me in public. She expected me to beg, to sob, to create a scene that would prove whatever story she was telling herself. She looked at me with that expectant gaze, as if waiting for me to collapse into dramatics, to seize the mic and declare my undying devotion. Instead, I stared at her for 3 seconds, then at the applauding crowd, and then I did the thing she hadn't planned for. I turned and walked out. No words, no spectacle. Just a straight, steady exit that felt both impossibly long and shockingly brief. The clapping stopped like someone flipped a switch. I heard her call my name into the mic, uncertain now, but I didn't slow down. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove home, leaving her to explain to 30 confused people why her finale had walked away unscripted. I arrived around 8:30 and poured myself a bourbon, not out of devastation, but to clear my head. She didn't come home that night. She probably stayed with her sister expecting me to call and beg forgiveness. My phone stayed quiet on the counter and I was fine with that. Sunday morning I started doing practical things. First, I phoned the bank and removed her access from our joint accounts. Not vindicatively, just basic protection. If she wanted to be single, she could manage finances like one. Next I called our insurance company and had her removed from my health plan. Single people get their own insurance. Third, I called a locksmith. If you announced to 30 people you were single, you don't live here anymore. By noon I had new locks and a neat stack of her things boxed in the garage. Not thrown about like spite, just organized as if I were helping someone move out, because that was essentially what was happening. Around 2 her name finally flashed on my phone and I let it ring 4 times before I picked up. "What's up?" I said. Her voice was sharp. Incredulous. Are you serious right now? You walked out on me last night. Actually, I walked out on your performance. There's a difference. That wasn't a performance. That was me being honest. Honest would have been telling me privately. What you did was public humiliation designed to make me look pathetic. Congratulations. Mission accomplished. She fell silent for a beat, not expecting my calm. We need to talk. I'm coming home. No, you're not. Excuse me. You announced you were single. Single people don't live in my house. Our house. You can't lock me out. Past tense. You made your choice in front of 30 witnesses. I'm treating that choice like you asked me to. I could hear her breathing quicken. You can't just do this. Can I? You might be surprised. You announced our divorce at a surprise party without filing papers. I'm being practical. She hung up. I finished my coffee and kept boxing her things. An hour later she was pounding on the door in that same red dress, visibly worse for wear. I opened it but stayed in the frame, not inviting her in. What is wrong with you? She demanded. Nothing at all. I feel fantastic. Clarifying, she sputtered. Yeah. For months I've been wondering why you were distant. Last night you clarified everything. I didn't mean it like that. Really? Because saying marriage is a scam and that you're single again sounded pretty clear to me. Was there a hidden meaning? Her face flushed. I was making a point. I wanted you to fight for us. I wanted to know you still cared. I laughed softly. So your plan was to announce our divorce at a party, wait for me to beg, and then graciously take me back in front of our friends? That was romance to you. She opened and closed her mouth, then started crying. Ugly sobs that might have moved me a month ago but now sounded like manipulation. I'll end it with Jared. I'll do whatever you want. Just sign the papers. That's what I want, I said. The house is worth $200,000. You can't take it all. Watch me, she snapped. I shut the door and by Thursday the house had 3 offers. I took the highest, a cash buyer, a developer who wanted to tear it down for condos. It felt fitting in a way. On Friday she tried a new tactic. She showed up with Lisa and Amy, the 3 women who'd turned my pain into entertainment. Danny, be reasonable, Lisa urged. Mila made a mistake. You're being vindictive. Vindictive. I tasted the word. Is that what we call justice now? You're stealing that label to protect what your friend did. I looked at Amy. Did you enjoy that group chat? All those jokes about poor stupid Danny. Amy couldn't meet my eyes. We were just venting. Girls talk. Girls talk, men act, I replied, then pulled my phone out. Want to see the video where Mila explains how she'll take me for everything in the divorce? The one where she calls my mother a dried-up witch. That's enough, Mila barked, stepping between them. You've made your point. Have I asked. Because your family still thinks this is negotiable. I addressed all 3 women. Let me be clear. This marriage is over. The house is sold. Mila walks away with nothing but the clothes on her back and whatever Jared will support her with. You can't leave her with nothing, Lisa protested. I can. I will. And if any of you interfere, I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly who you are. My smile was cold. Try me. They left without another word. The closing was set for Tuesday. After paying the mortgage and reimbursing my parents' investment, I walked away with $180,000. Mila was nowhere to be seen. Her lawyer said she was in the hospital with stress-related chest pains. I felt nothing for that. I drove to the cemetery where my grandfather lay, the man who taught me electricity, hard work, and to treat people with respect. You'd understand, I told the headstone, even if you wouldn't like how I did it. I've become someone I barely recognize, I admitted. But maybe that's what it takes. Maybe nice guys finish last. The wind stirred the oaks and I took it as agreement. I moved into a small rented apartment and tried to start over. 3 weeks later the phone rang. Mr. Carter, this is Janet Morrison. I found your card in my husband's wallet. Sorry, Mrs. Morrison, you have the wrong number. You help people like me, don't you? Spouses whose partners think they're clever. I looked at the plain white cards on my desk with my name and number. Word travels fast in small towns. What makes you think he's cheating? I asked. He's been working late, buying new clothes, hiding his phone. He thinks I'm stupid. I want to know everything and I want him to pay. A familiar dark satisfaction unfurled in my chest. Mrs. Morrison, I think I can help. 6 months later, my consulting business was thriving. I helped betrayed spouses gather evidence, protect assets, and plan legal strategies for revenge that stayed inside the law. My reputation spread by whispers and referrals. I never saw Mila again. Rumors said she moved out of state with Jared, who lost his job and family. My parents visited occasionally, proud but wary of the methods I'd used. My office was a converted warehouse downtown. Spartan, efficient, no family photos, just filing cabinets filled with other people's betrayals and a desk where I planned responses. One Tuesday there was a knock at the frosted glass and I saw a familiar face. Lisa, Mila's sister. I opened the door and studied the woman who'd once laughed at my pain. Hello, Lisa. Danny, I need help. She looked older, worn down in a way time doesn't always cause. Expensive clothes, wrinkled. Makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. Help with what? I asked. My husband. I think he's cheating. I almost laughed at the cosmic irony but kept my expression neutral. Come in. She sat across from me, fidgeting with her purse. How long? I asked. 3 months, maybe longer. He's distant, secretive. She looked up. I know you hate me. I know what we did was terrible. I don't have anywhere else. What makes you think I hate you? She swallowed. The group chat. The things we said. Her voice broke. I was awful. We all were. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I leaned back and watched the woman who once mocked my marriage. Tell me about the changes you've seen. For the next hour, Lisa listed the classic signs. Late nights, password changes, new clothes, distracted behavior. I took notes and built a profile like I did for every client. I can help, I said finally. But once we start, there's no going back. If he's cheating, I'll find proof. If he's hiding assets, I'll uncover them. Then you decide what kind of justice you want. What do you charge? She asked. No fee up front. 20% of whatever we protect or recover. Call it professional courtesy for an old friend. Why help me after everything? She whispered. I looked at her, remembering the humiliation, the rage that had driven me to burn bridges. Because now you know how it feels, I said quietly. Maybe that's justice enough. Lisa left with a contract and instructions, and I returned to the files of other betrayed spouses. Business was booming, pain was profitable, and I had become very good at turning betrayal into balance sheets. The phone rang again, another broken voice, another story of trust shattered. I answered with professional sympathy, already calculating angles. Outside my office, the city thrummed with secrets, lies, and small betrayals waiting to be exposed. Inside the warehouse, I built cases like electrical circuits, precise until the current flowed exactly where I wanted it. I learned that while nice guys might finish last, patient men armed with evidence and lawyers finish rich. A few weeks later, I was at a sports bar with coworkers, enjoying a normal night for the first time in months when she walked in with her sister and 2 other women. She saw me, marched over, and interrupted our table. Can we talk? She pleaded, ignoring the guys around us. We're watching the game. 5 minutes, one of my co-workers said. You said you were single, I told her. Her face went red and she blinked. Don't do this here, she said. Do what? I asked. Tell the truth. You did the public announcement, remember? One of the guys whistled low. That was you, dude. That was harsh. She looked around at 4 men who now treated her like toxic waste. This is ridiculous, she said. What's ridiculous is you following me to a bar to continue something you ended at a party. You said you were single. Single people don't chase their ex-husbands to sports bars. Her sister grabbed her arm. Let's go. She shrugged off the hand. I'm not giving up on us. There is no us, I said. You made that very clear to 30 people. She hesitated, then asked, voice faltering. Were you lying then or? You're lying now, she demanded. I wasn't lying. I was trying to get through to you. Mission accomplished, I thought, watching comprehension dawn on her face as the table full of people stared with a mix of pity and judgment. Her grand gesture had blown up so badly, even strangers were shaking their heads. "Fine," she said at last. "But this isn't over." "No, it's over," I replied, and she stormed out with her sister trailing behind. My co-workers sat in stunned silence for a beat before one of them let out a nervous laugh. "Damn, man. She actually thought public humiliation would win you back. That's some next-level crazy." The weekend that followed felt strangely calm. I emptied the garage, tackled chores I'd been avoiding, and discovered how pleasant it was to be in my own home without tiptoeing around manufactured crises or emotional theatrics. Then, Sunday afternoon, her high school best showed up on my doorstep looking genuinely contrite, the polite but distant woman who usually kept her distance. "I need to apologize," she said before hello. "For clapping. For not walking out. For letting her make you the punchline." I leaned in the doorway and asked why she hadn't intervened. She admitted shock, inertia, and the terrible truth. She'd listened to my wife for months and started to believe the picture she'd painted about our marriage. Seeing it in person made her realize she'd been wrong. "What did you see?" I asked. "A woman humiliating a man who clearly loved her," she answered, shame in her eyes. "She chose attention over him. We all feel used. We don't want to be around her." She told me how my wife's frantic calls and pleas for help since the party had been met with cold shoulders. People were done. For the first time in weeks, I sat on my back deck with a beer and let the absurdity settle. One week I was married to someone who weaponized our troubles for applause. The next I was free from that toxicity and her allies were admitting the truth. Sometimes the best answer to someone trying to degrade you is simply to refuse to be degraded. Walk away from the microphone. Walk toward dignity. The people worth keeping will respect that. The rest weren't worth keeping anyway. The following week escalated into desperation. She started popping up everywhere, like she was tracking my movements. Monday she waited by my car in the office garage. I climbed in and left without acknowledging her. Tuesday she trailed me down the grocery aisles, pitching counseling and second chances while I pushed a cart past Cheerios and corn flakes and walked out. Wednesday she recruited other people. Her mother calling to guilt me about breaking up the family. Her brother texting to arrange a civil coffee. My own mother fielding tears about a mistake she supposedly wanted to fix. My answer was the same every time. You chose the audience, so I'm honoring that choice. Thursday she tried the gym, a place she'd never set foot in before, pretending to run while staring at me, then waiting outside the men's locker room until staff escorted her away. Friday she went theatrical. Flowers at my office with a childish "I'm sorry" card, and later, a singing telegram that interrupted a lunch meeting as a costumed stranger warbled about forgiveness while my clients sat baffled. I tipped the performer and finished the meeting. My clients later complimented me for staying composed. When sympathy-seeking posts and melancholic throwbacks on social media failed to move me, she moved to more manipulative tactics. An emergency call, hysterical and immediate, then the same story from her sister. I drove to the sister's place more to see how far she'd sink than out of worry. She answered the door perfectly fine, puffy-eyed and theatrically distraught. "You came," she said, like my presence proved something. "Your sister said you were in trouble," I noted. "I can see you're fine." "I'm leaving," she said, then tried to soft-sell a private conversation. Lying about an emergency as a communication strategy. Maturity, apparently. She grabbed my arm when I turned to go, tears and pleading spilling out. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. I miss you. It's killing me." I looked at her hand on my arm, then back at her face, and said simply, "That's what consequences feel like. You'll get used to it." She followed me to my car, still negotiating, still begging. I drove away and watched her in the rear view, alone in her sister's driveway, finally realizing some bridges burned in front of 30 witnesses can't be rebuilt with apologies later. The woman who wanted an audience got exactly what she asked for, but the audience moved on and she was left watching a show only she cared about. 1 month later I had one of the best nights in years. A perfectly grilled steak, a bottle of wine saved for something meaningful, and the playoffs on TV. A late, heavy rain started, the kind that makes a roof feel like a blessing, when a soft, insistent knock came at the door. Through the window I saw her soaked to the skin. No umbrella, hair matted, mascara running in rivulets, jeans and a t-shirt clinging to her as if she'd been standing there for a while. She pressed her palm to the glass and begged, "Please, let me in. We need to talk." This was the woman who, a month earlier, had rented a venue, gathered people, and announced she was single again into a microphone, expecting me to collapse in a spectacle of repentance. Now she was asking for 5 minutes in the rain to undo 8 seconds of public humiliation. I felt none of the triumph I might have expected. Only emptiness. No vengeance, no joy. Just exhaustion at the performance and the repetition. I moved from the window, sipped my wine, and let the knocking continue until it stopped. Later I looked out and found her hunched on my steps, head in her hands, soaked through. I wondered how long she'd sit, whether this was another stage plea, but mostly I felt tired of the drama, tired of being a prop in someone else's narrative of empowerment. She'd chosen an audience over a private conversation. Every consequence afterward was simply the natural fallout. I went to bed with the curtains closed, and in the morning she was gone. A soggy scrap of paper stuck to my door, probably a note written on the steps, went straight into the trash unread. 3 months later, mutual friends told me she'd moved out of state to start over away from the social circle that had witnessed her miscalculation. I never saw her again. People sometimes ask if I regret how I handled it, if I should have been merciful, forgiven, or extended another chance. But respect doesn't get returned by an apology. Trust shredded on a stage doesn't stitch back in private, and dignity can't be bought back with tears. She made a spectacle of being single, so I gave her exactly that. Our story is over. If you've read this far, consider subscribing to our channel. It helps us a lot. I've picked 2 other videos I think you'll like. Feel free to click through. I'll be here with the next story. See you soon.